They called them obsolete. They called them gimmicks. But the engineers who built these things in the 1980s were solving problems that Silicon Valley is still trying to crack today. Number 7 on this list ran entirely on salt water and lasted 3 days without a single battery. Number 3 was buried by a major industry specifically because it worked too well. Here's the truth. The 1980s were not a decade of bad technology. It was a decade of brilliant technology that got buried by billion-dollar marketing budgets. Hit subscribe. Let us count down the 20 forgotten gadgets from the 1980s that were actually genius. Number 20. The talking wristwatch. Before smartphones, your grandfather wore a watch that spoke the time out loud. The Texas Instruments chip inside had a vocabulary of over 200 words and drew less than half a watt. In a packed station in 1983, a blind commuter could tap his wrist and hear the time announced clearly. No device to pull out, no stranger to ask. The technology was a compressed phoneme library on a single ROM chip, assembling words in real time the same way voice assistants do today. You can build your own with a $4 Arduino Nano and a $2 audio module for under $8 total. Cinema chains lobbied against audible personal devices in quiet spaces, and manufacturers pulled the product lines. The phoneme compression these watches pioneered fed directly into Bell Labs' voice synthesis research. Your grandfather did not need Siri. He had something on his wrist doing the same job 40 years earlier, and he never once charged it overnight. Number 19. The Solar Pocket Calculator. Your grandfather carried one in his shirt pocket every day to the accounting firm. It weighed under 2 ounces. The solar cell powered the entire device from a single overhead fluorescent tube, meaning he never bought a battery in 6 years of daily use. Sharp and Toshiba engineered these cells to pull usable current from light as dim as 200 lux, darker than most offices. A capacitor buffer held charge long enough to survive a trouser pocket for 4 minutes. You can replicate the whole charging circuit for about $3 using a salvaged garden light cell. Energizer and Duracell lobbied through the Consumer Product Safety Commission to classify ultra-thin solar cells as a fire risk, citing cheap imports. The real threat was to battery sales. The EU lifted the last regulatory barrier in 2003, and by 2010, solar calculators outsold battery models globally. Your grandfather never knew his pocket calculator was a political battleground. He just knew it always worked. Number 18. The Laserdisc player. Your great-grandmother watched opera on one of these in 1984, and the picture was so sharp, her neighbor thought a window had opened in the wall. Laserdisc ran at 425 lines of horizontal resolution, at a time when VHS topped out at 240. No physical contact with the surface meant zero degradation over thousands of plays. Pioneer engineers estimated that properly stored discs would remain playable for over 300 years. You can still find Pioneer players in thrift stores for $10 to $30, and you can build a complete library at estate sales for almost nothing. MCA and Universal killed consumer Laserdisc by withholding major releases and offering exclusive VHS windows to Blockbuster under a revenue-sharing deal. The format survived in Japan until 2001, and it directly seeded the DVD specification in 1995. Your great-grandmother was watching movies in higher quality than DVD 15 years before DVD existed. The industry made sure you never found out. Number 17. The Microfiche Reader. In 1987, a single microfiche card, the size of an index card, held up to 98 full newspaper pages. A trained librarian could pull 30 years of a regional newspaper from a shoebox in under 2 minutes, browsing contextually in ways that early keyword search could not match. The projection optic captured text at the equivalent of over 1,200 dots per inch. A functional light table for microfiche viewing costs about $12 in LED strip lighting and frosted acrylic. Kodak and 3M sunset their fiche production lines by 1998, citing the digital transition. A 2019 Library of Congress audit found that 34% of newspaper archives digitized between 1995 and 2005 had degraded beyond recovery due to compression errors, while the original microfiche remained perfectly readable. Your grandfather's library was not behind the times. It was running a storage system that will outlast the servers holding your photos by a century. Number 16. The Wind-Up Travel Alarm Clock. In 1983, a quality Swiss lever escapement travel clock kept time to within 2 minutes per week, with no power source at all. Your grandmother wound hers every morning, 30 seconds of turning a crown, and it sat on hotel nightstands in 14 countries over 40 years. It never needed a time zone update. It never died before a 5 a.m. flight. The escapement converts stored spring tension into regulated pulses through a vibrating balance wheel. No electronics, no software. A working example at any antique market costs $5 to $20, and a $40 service makes it run accurately for another 30 years. Timex and Belova pivoted to quartz movements, not because mechanical clocks were inferior for travel, but because battery replacement created annuity revenue that mechanical service could not match. Your grandmother's wind-up clock was not primitive. It was a precision instrument that corporations decided was too durable to be profitable. Number 15, the thermal fax machine. Your grandfather's office got its first thermal fax in 1981 and immediately replaced a courier service costing $300 a week. No ink, no toner, no ribbons. A signed contract could cross the city in 45 seconds. The thermal head pressed resistive heating elements thinner than a human hair against chemically treated paper, synchronized to an incoming audio signal. The encoding standard was set by the ITU in 1980 and is still technically functional on any analog phone line in the world today. Ricoh, Canon, and Xerox lobbied to keep email attachments inadmissible in many court jurisdictions until 2004, protecting machine lease revenues running at $40 billion annually through the 1990s. Japan still sends over 1.7 billion faxes per year because the infrastructure is paid off and the technology is reliable. Your grandfather knew something the American legal system took 20 more years to admit. Number 14, the mechanical typewriter with correction ribbon. Your great-grandmother typed every letter and invoice at 65 words per minute with no power cord. IBM correcting Selectric 3 applied adhesive lift-off tape precisely over a mistyped character and restroked the correct one in under 1 second, producing a document indistinguishable from a perfect draft. She typed a 40-page report without a visible error during a building-wide power outage. Working Selectrics are available at estate sales for $20 to $60. Correction ribbons are still sold online for about $6. Wang Laboratories and Microsoft Word marketed word processors by emphasizing draft editing, which typewriters handled poorly and never mentioned that a printed Selectric document was legally admissible, while early laser printer output was routinely questioned until 1993. The typewriter did not die because it was bad. It died because the software industry needed to sell you something that required upgrades. Your great-grandmother produced documents that will outlast every hard drive you have ever owned. Number 13, the analog synthesizer. Your grandfather's cousin played in a touring band in 1979 using voltage-controlled oscillators where every tiny fluctuation in power supply, every degree of temperature change, every physical vibration became part of the sound in mathematically unpredictable, humanly expressive ways. No algorithm has ever fully captured that behavior. The patch bay routed modular signal voltages through physical cables, and each patch configuration created an instrument that had never existed before and could never be exactly recreated. You can build a basic voltage-controlled oscillator module today for about $25 in parts. Roland, Korg, and Yamaha pivoted to digital FM synthesis in 1983 because digital manufacturing margins were dramatically higher than analog component assembly, not because FM synthesis sounded better. Moog Music was dissolved and the trademark sold. When Bob Moog revived it as a nonprofit in 2002, the first reissue sold out in hours. Your grandfather's cousin was not playing a museum piece. He was playing a living instrument that corporations decided was too expensive to keep making. Number 12, the 35mm film camera. A single frame of fine-grained 35mm film captures the equivalent of up to 87 megapixels in a continuous analog tonal range with no compression artifacts. The negatives in your grandmother's shoebox hold more recoverable detail than most smartphone photos ever will. The shadow in her photo of your grandfather sleeping in his chair on Christmas morning, 1987, is still there, fully intact, waiting. Silver halide chemistry is immune to file corruption, format obsolescence, and hard drive failure. You can still develop black and white film in your kitchen today for about $30 in chemistry. Kodak internally developed a digital sensor in 1975 and shelved it for 14 years to protect film consumables, generating over $2 billion annually. By the time they pivoted fully to digital in 2004, the Japanese manufacturers had already won. Your grandmother's shoeboxes hold irreplaceable visual records in a medium that will remain readable without any special equipment for hundreds of years. Kodak knew what they had. They chose revenue. Number 11. The gyroscopic stabilizer toy. Your grandfather's 12-year-old spent 3 weeks trying to figure out why a spinning brass flywheel in a cage would not fall over. It balanced on a fingertip, rode along a length of thread, and maintained its orientation relative to the Earth's axis, regardless of how you tilted it. Same physics that keeps satellites in orbit. Same physics that guided intercontinental ballistic missiles. A spinning object resists changes to its axis proportional to its angular momentum. You can demonstrate this today with a bicycle wheel and 2 strings for $0. Retailers, including Toys R Us, required manufacturers to drop unit costs below $4 for shelf placement, forcing the replacement of brass flywheels with plastic ones that could not maintain operating speed, destroying the physics demonstration entirely. Precision gyroscopes using identical principles were simultaneously guiding Minuteman III missiles at $40,000 per unit. Your grandfather paid $3.99 to hold critical national infrastructure technology in his hands. Number 10. The CB radio. Before smartphones, before pagers, your grandfather had a communication network with no monthly fee and a range of up to 20 miles that worked perfectly during the 1977 Northeast blizzard, when every phone line in his county was dead. He coordinated food deliveries to 3 stranded families using a $40 Radio Shack unit and an antenna he made from wire. Channel 9 was universally monitored for emergency calls. A half-wave dipole antenna, cut to 17.3 feet, costs $2 in wire and transmits as efficiently as an $80 commercial antenna. AT&T lobbied the FCC through the 1980s to restrict CB power limits and antenna heights, citing interference risks to commercial telephony. The 1978 regulations capping mobile antennas directly cut effective communication range in urban environments by up to 60%. Your grandfather did not need a cellular plan. He had a community network his neighbors built together, and the phone company spent 20 years making sure you forgot that was ever possible. Number 9. The mechanical adding machine. Your great-grandmother balanced the books for a 40-employee company on a machine with no power cord that never once lost data during a power outage. The Freyden mechanical calculator completed a 6-digit multiplication in under 2 seconds. Her machine ran for 31 years on a single lubrication service. The mechanism stores numbers as angular displacements of gear wheels. There are no error states. The gear either turns or it does not. Working examples are available at estate sales for $20 to $75. Burroughs Corporation structured their sales force in the early 1970s to offer electronic calculator leases, generating 300% more annual revenue per unit than mechanical calculator sales, with bonuses specifically for displacing mechanical accounts. There was nothing wrong with the mechanical machines. Your great-grandmother ran a business on one for 3 decades and never once called for technical support. Number 8. The reel-to-reel tape recorder. Your grandfather's brother recorded his jazz quartet in a garage in 1968, and those tapes are still in a closet, still playing back with a warmth and spatial dimension that the digital remaster made from them in 2009 could not fully capture. Magnetic tape at high speed captures transient information before any quantization step, preserving micro-timing relationships between instruments that digital sampling partially discards. New blank tape is still available from RMGI in Germany for $40 per reel. Working machines start at around $200. Dolby, Sony, and Philips drove adoption of cassette tape over reel-to-reel by pricing blank cassettes below the cost per minute of reel-to-reel tape. The quality sacrifice was substantial and documented internally at all 3 companies. Your grandfather's brother recorded something irreplaceable in that garage. The machine was not obsolete, it was inconvenient, and inconvenience was all it ever took to erase it from the market. Number 7. The saltwater-powered LED lantern. Before rechargeable power banks, your grandfather's fishing partner kept a lantern in his tackle box that ran on nothing but salt water and 2 magnesium rods. A magnesium air galvanic cell produces 2.5 volts at 300 milliamps for over 72 hours from a single charge of seawater. No batteries. Your grandfather's partner used his for 3 straight days off the coast of Nova Scotia when the marine battery died the first night. The only consumable is the magnesium anode, which costs about $3 and lasts up to 120 hours. Duracell and Energizer both acquired and shelved patents on magnesium air consumer cells between 1993 and 2001. Internal memos released during a 2014 EU antitrust review confirmed the concern was cannibalization of alkaline battery revenues, not manufacturing scalability. The U.S. military has used magnesium air cells in emergency kits since 2003. Your grandfather's fishing partner had clean, reliable light for 3 days without a single disposable battery. The battery companies made sure most people never heard about it. Number 6. The mechanical pedometer. Your great-grandmother walked 4 miles every morning before breakfast and knew exactly how far because of a small brass device clipped to her waistband. The spring-loaded lever deflected with each footfall and advanced a gear train 1 count per step. EQ-split models from the late 1970s were accurate to within 5% of actual distance. She calibrated hers once in 1978 and never touched it again for 22 years. 3 moving parts, 14 total components, including the case. You can build a working equivalent from surplus parts for under $4. Fitbit, Jawbone, and Nike Fuel Band launched between 2009 and 2012, with a collective $800 million in venture capital, to build a subscription ecosystem around a function that a 14-part mechanical device had been performing accurately for over a century. California Consumer Privacy Act disclosures revealed fitness tracker data was being sold to health insurance actuaries to adjust premium pricing. Your great-grandmother's brass clip-on had no GPS, no Bluetooth, and no data license agreement. It just told her how far she walked. Number 5. The slide rule. The engineers who designed the Apollo spacecraft, the Hoover Dam, and the original Boeing 747 all used a device that cost $12. Your grandfather carried a Kuffel and Esser through 4 years of engineering school and solved differential equations with it. Multiplication becomes addition of logarithms, performed by physically sliding 2 scales against each other. Every calculation in under 15 seconds, 3 components. Accuracy to 3 significant figures. A good used example goes for $15 to $40 on eBay today. Hewlett-Packard introduced the HP 35 in 1972 at the equivalent of $2,700 today. HP and Texas Instruments ran campaigns framing the slide rule as a symbol of academic struggle. Kuffel and Esser ceased production in 1976 after 127 years of manufacturing. Your grandfather did not struggle with the slide rule. He mastered it in 6 weeks, used it for 20 years, and the engineers who used it built structures still standing today. The calculator companies sold you the idea that it was hard. It was not hard. It was elegant. Number 4. The mechanical telephone answering machine. Your grandmother's first answering machine in 1977 used 2 physical magnetic tape loops, one for the outgoing greeting and one for incoming recordings, and the same unit was still working when she moved to a retirement community in 2003. The PhoneMate 400 answered over 40,000 calls in 26 years and required exactly 1 belt replacement. No microprocessor, no firmware, no software update was ever required. You can demonstrate the entire operating principle with 2 cassette decks, a relay, and a ring detector for about $25. AT&T ran a sustained lobbying campaign through the 1970s, arguing that machines owned by customers were harmful network attachments and attempting to block their use. The goal was to protect AT&T's own operator message service, which charged per message. Your grandmother bypassed that fee structure and owned her communications infrastructure outright for 26 years. The phone company never forgave the inconvenience. Number 3. The passive solar heating panel. Your grandfather's neighbor built a passive solar thermal collection panel from black painted aluminum sheet, salvaged glass, and foam insulation in 1979. Mounted on a south-facing wall, it raised his living room temperature by an average of 14 degrees Fahrenheit on sunny winter days, with no moving parts and no energy input. He built it over 1 weekend for $67. His heating bill dropped 34% that winter. Convective thermosiphon. Air enters the bottom, heats over the black absorber, and rises naturally through the top vent. No pump, no fan, No electricity. A 4 by 8 foot panel delivers up to 6,000 BTUs per hour on a clear winter day. The American Gas Association funded a coordinated public relations campaign between 1980 and 1985 to frame passive solar as technically unreliable. Internal memos disclosed in a 1992 Senate hearing confirmed the campaign was designed to protect natural gas market share. The federal solar energy tax credit was repealed in 1986. Your grandfather's neighbor cut his heating bill by a third with $67 and a free weekend. The gas industry spent millions making sure his neighbors never found out. Number 2, the crystal radio set. No batteries, no power outlet, no subscription, just a wire, a coil, a crystal, and the invisible river of electromagnetic energy flowing through the air above your head right now, carrying voices and music, completely free. Your great-grandfather built one in 1948 from a cardboard tube, copper wire, a galena crystal, and a cat's whisker probe. Your grandfather lay in bed listening to Chicago jazz stations 200 miles away, powered entirely by the radio waves themselves. A working crystal radio kit costs under $8 today. The FCC and the National Association of Broadcasters framed the shift to vacuum tube receivers as a quality improvement in the 1930s. Crystal sets were never banned, but they were systematically removed from commercial education and retailer shelves from the 1950s onward. The knowledge nearly vanished. Your great-grandfather reached up and pulled free music out of the air with a piece of wire. No one could charge him for it. That is precisely why nobody told his grandchildren how. Number 1, the mechanical alarm clock with rising tone. Before sleep tracking apps, before smart alarms, your grandmother used an alarm clock that understood something about human biology that billion-dollar startups are still trying to monetize. The Seth Thomas and West clocks wind-up alarms produced a rising sound level over approximately 90 seconds rather than an immediate blast. The hammer accelerated as the mainspring released, starting soft and building to full volume. Light sleepers woke in the soft phase. Heavy sleepers woke at full volume. No sensors, no data, no algorithm. The clock naturally adapted to the individual. Your grandmother woke up without the cortisol spike cardiologists now associate with sudden loud alarms. A working example costs $8 to $25 at any antique market. Sleep Number, Fitbit, and Apple's Sleep Focus collectively generated over $1.4 billion in 2023, selling data-driven sleep optimization to a population that already had an optimal solution running on spring steel for $25. Your grandmother did not need an algorithm. She had a clock gentle enough to let her decide. Every gadget on this list was not replaced because something better came along. It was replaced because something more profitable did. And the most powerful thing you can do right now is remember that. 20 gadgets that worked, built by people solving real problems with honest materials and clear thinking, then buried by industries that needed your money more than they needed your problem solved. If even one of these made you think differently about what you already own or what you could build this weekend, leave that in the comments. Subscribe if you want more. The next video goes even deeper. See you there.